But there's a little group of Davids and a number of very big Goliaths. But it is important to call the food companies out as evil and that they do disgusting things, because that helps create a market away from their product.
The author of Ultra-Processed People, Chris Van Tulleken.
So have businesses, make them make money, that's fine, that's their job, let's be open about it, and then regulate the hell out of them. And
this episode, I'm going to be joined by Chris Van Tulleken, one of the UK's leading experts in the tricks, the techniques and the motivations of the food industry. Chris has written a brilliant book called Ultra-Processed People. He's travelled around the world, to Brazil, to all over pretty much South America, to discover the techniques and the tricks that these companies use to brainwash us into buying their produce. But before we meet Chris, let me talk quickly about business, in particular corporations, those companies floated on the stock market. You know, I've been fighting against big corporates for over 30 years with the companies that I've built, and a couple of times I've sold my companies to those big corporates and sort of got on the inside. And it's quite interesting that I've now identified that there are only 3 things that they can do to drive their profits. And first of all, why is profit important? Well, if you're an executive, a CEO, or a board member of one of those big food corporations, your only driver, your motivation is to make sure that every 3 months when you announce your quarterly earnings, that you exceed the expectations of your shareholders. If you don't blow them away with your figures and your financial results, you're most likely going to lose your job. So they are driven by profit. There are only 3 ways. It doesn't matter what type of company you're in. I've been studying this, like I say, for 30 years. A good friend of mine, Richard Branson, and I, we've discussed it. There are only 3 ways to drive profit. First of all, get more customers. How do you get more customers? You advertise, you market to them. So if you're in the food industry, what do? You have bright colour packaging. You put health claims on the outside of packaging, even if they're a bit dubious. You put cartoons on. You do all sorts of things to get new customers. That's number 1. Number 2, to drive your profits, you get the same customers to buy more often. How do you do that in the food industry? Well, you have to get your customers to crave your products, to be addicted to your produce. If they're not, they'll go and buy from your competitor. If they do that, you lose the customer. So you have to make your products more craveable, more addictive than even your competitors. And then once you've got lots of customers and you get them buying more often, the only 3rd way to increase your profits is to make more profit per transaction. Well, you can't keep putting your prices up, because then you're not competitive, therefore you lose the customer. So all you can really do is drive down the cost. And what's the easiest way to drive down the cost in the food industry? You start substituting all the expensive ingredients, the ingredients by nature, and instead you substitute them with chemicals and things grown in the laboratory. You start trusting the scientist and relying on the scientist more than you do the farmer. So just quickly recap those, because that will set the scene for this podcast. Only 3 ways for these corporates, especially the food corporates, to increase their profits, to keep their job, to keep their shareholders happy. Number 1, get more customers, advertise them. Number 2, get them to spend more, become addicted to your product, more purchases. And number 3, drive down the costs. Anyway, before we get going, I also want to do a big plug for the International Food Addiction Consensus Conference. I also want to tell you that what you're about to see is an extract of Chris Van Tulleken's chat. I'd like you to follow the link and donate £25 to the charity. If you do that, you have access to all the content from the entire conference, where you'll learn so much. And all those £25 donations, they're going to help the charity come up with this consensus about food addiction and really categorize what it is that's driving so much harm. Please do click on the link. But now let's meet Chris Van Tulleken. This is so exciting. I can't wait for it to get going. I represent the Bennett Foundation. We, as a charity, are trying to get the message out about what good health looks like. And we were therefore, this is perfect marriage for us, this conference, because that's what it's all about. And we've been doing this for about 12 years, trying to educate the UK. And last year, a book came out, and I thought, what a great title. Ultra-Processed People. I thought, well, that's fantastic. And our first speaker I really want to thank from the bottom of my heart, because what you've done in the UK is kind of impossible. You've got all the big media listening to the story. I think you say it in such a honest way. You're not very frightening, because some doctors are very frightening. None of you are here, of course, but you say it in such a way that everybody listens. So you've got the attention of the media, and that's what we need to get the message out about food, about addiction, about what the big corporations are doing, chasing the money rather than our health. I've been told 60 seconds, so I think that was 58. So Chris, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Do I need this? No. Great. Can you hear me? Thank you, Steve, for those very kind words. I must say I'm standing very heavily on the shoulders of the other speakers today, so I appreciate that. But a lot of people have been doing this work for a lot longer than me. If I press that, will I get my slides? Here we go. How should we understand harmful food? So we've got research definitions, and then we've got policy, and those are different things. Every country has more or less 4 ways of understanding them. Okay, we've got our nutrient guidance. In the UK, we've got dietary guidance. We've got definitions of sort of HFSS, and I'll come to that. There's usually some sort of light warning system on a package that we can use to understand. Or we've got UPF. This is now very well understood around the world. So these are our 4 UK understandings of harmful food. They're very confused. They appear contradictory. Dietary recommendations. Now, for this audience, this may be more controversial. These are basically pretty solid. They're grounded in evidence when it comes to physical harms for health. I'll just draw your attention to the idea that no more of your total calorie intake should be from free sugar than 5%. So just hold on to that number. Traffic lights. Cocoa Pops gets 2 orange traffic lights, okay, an orange for sugar. 17% of the calories in Cocoa Pops are from sugar. So traffic lights, the wrong thresholds, they don't work, they're voluntarily applied, and maybe the fact that Coca-Cola Corporation does voluntarily apply them to their products might be a signal that they are not an effective way of giving warning labels about food. So Diet Cola is, of course, the healthiest thing you can possibly drink. It's got 4 traffic lights. We've then got this Ofcom HFSS definition. You would think that HFSS meant products that were high in fat, salt, and sugar. It doesn't. It's a very complicated calculation. This is one part of the calculation. You can have a product that's excessive in salt, saturated fat, and sugar, but doesn't meet the threshold because of the equation. And there are no research studies that anyone has ever been able to show me linking this definition of harmful food to negative health outcomes. Thank you. What is the evidence for UPF by comparison? Now, this is important for the addiction research, because you are being asked to provide evidence that addiction exists when I wonder if the same evidence has been required for gambling, for tobacco, for alcohol addiction. And I think it's really important to demand of DSM and WHO that there is consistency. UPF is being held to a far higher evidential standard. It has more than surpassed the Bradford Hill criteria. So let's just look through it. 50% is, sorry, the print's a bit small. It's more than half of our diet in the UK, in the US, in Australia. We have preclinical and clinical studies, experimental randomized controlled trials on properties of ultra-processed food. We've got softness, energy density, marketing trials. This is really good evidence. We've got the same studies in animals and humans on emulsifiers, non-nutritive sweeteners, plastics. We've got RCTs on salt, saturated fat, sugar, and UPF itself. I'll come to the overlap, but it's really important. The evidence around sugar and salt and fat, you have to throw it in with UPF. And we've got now 32 meta-analyses or systematic reviews. So not 32 prospective cohort studies. We've got meta-analyses on, the list of negative health outcomes, including more and more every day, including all-cause mortality, okay? So when it comes to plausibility, it's a really important part of epidemiology to go, are we proposing something plausible? And I would flip that question on its head. Is it plausible that industrially processed foods made essentially for hedge funds, for institutional investors, would not cause weight gain? How could a food made for that purpose not be engineered to drive excess consumption? I'm not going to dwell on this because we've got the incredible Michael Moss. Everyone is going to be talking about how this food, about some mechanisms. So I will just go through, when we think about experimental evidence, it's soft, it's energy dense. There are sugar sweetness mismatches. The same is true for protein. The same is true for fat. There are evidence of additives, plastics, pesticides, the food matrix. It's micro and phytonutrient deplete. causes dental decay, facial shrinkage, displacement of real food, and on and on. Now, we can go on to talk about the thousands of properties of every product, but the important thing, and this is from Barry Smith, who is sitting there, a colleague at University of London and a professor of philosophy, talks about the gestalt of the food. Okay, you can't point at any one of these things and say it is the problem. The food is developed in testing labs on big groups of people like you, and every single property has been optimized to drive excess consumption or to reduce production costs.
What a fascinating chat there by Chris Van Tulleken. Please do check out that link and go and download the entire chat from Chris and other great speakers like Professor Robert Lustig and more. And that £25 donation will really help out the charity indeed. Now, after his chat, we went backstage and I wanted to ask him some more questions, mainly around food addiction and what he learned traveling around the world, investigating these big food giants.
That's where I kind of landed, is going, the market. There are two levers. There's the market, and there's legislation, and there's lawyers. I guess there's lawsuits, but the politicians can't apply the legislation until there's a market. There's a market for them to demand it. So
But even the lawsuits don't really matter that much, because I mean, Nestle got done so many times, and look, there's about 7 cases just against Nutella alone, and yet it's the fines that they get compared to the revenues they're making.
Yeah, the fines won't make any difference. But it's more like the lawsuits as a lever for regulation. The lawsuit, if you can go, look, we've proved that Coke, we've got to pay out of Coke for diet-related disease.
Yeah.
Now you need to put a warning label on Coke. That would be the logic. But yes, I completely agree. I mean, I've sort of stopped talking to food companies because I go and it's sort of pointless. They're like, because if you have a private meeting, they're like, yeah, we'd love to.
Yeah.
I spoke to one supermarket. I said, could you be a fruit and veg business? And they were like, we'd love to sell more fruit and veg, but we make our money on the chocolate tray bake.
Because that's
it's
what
made
they
of
come in
palm oil
for.
and flour and sugar and chocolate flavor and brown coloring. And you can make it in, this is amazing. It was like, you make it in March and you can sell it in December. I mean, it's just like, we can't sell pears.
Yeah, but then even even like the apples, we did a tweet the other day about an apple. I think it's one of our biggest ones. The research was showing that when they come in that beautiful pack and they're all identical, the same amount of blush and the same, they can be up to 14 months old.
No,
by the
they
time
can't be.
they can up to 4. They stay in an oxygen-free warehouse. Sorry, and they got all these lasers and the cameras looking to get 6 apples identical to put them in the bag. So because consumers now care more what they look like than what they taste like. I mean, So
That's horrible.
So
Okay,
what
so my
is-
fruit is old.
It could be. So, Chris, your book honestly blew me away.
Aw.
No, it really blew me away. It really did. Don't say that to everybody, apart from you and Robert Lustig. But it did, because I've always lectured that there's only 3 ways to grow a business. You get more customers, you get them to buy more frequently, or you get more profit out of each one.
Right.
And you
Hammer down the price of ingredients, grow the market,
yeah.
and make each person eat more food.
More.
Right.
Yeah, and then you apply that to the food industry, and you said it brilliantly about how, as a species, we've been eating food since man was around, of course, but we've only been eating food for somebody else's profit for, 4 or 5 generations.
Or like this. I mean, you'll get, in a much more sophisticated way than me, there is a difference, I think, between profit. People have sold healthy food. There are restaurants near me that make real food. There's profit, but then there's financialized growth for institutional investors, and there's a kind of, if you own a little pizzeria, like there's Sweet Thursday near me in Hackney, Rosie, who owns it, can decide to make a bit less money. She doesn't have to just flog everything, and she doesn't have to pay her staff minimum wage and, use the cheapest ingredients. But the big food companies have no choice, because pension funds, hedge funds, institutional investors, their purpose is to send the money out.
Well, it's a legal requirement at the moment.
So explain that to me. Various people have said
with the
that.
exception of a B corporation, which is something different, if you are a director of a publicly listed company on the stock market, like you say, with all these institutional investors, your sole responsibility is maximise return on investment
And it's
for your
illegal
shareholders.
to destroy shareholder value is illegal.
It's illegal.
Right.
And it has to be a priority. Yeah. So, for example, we listed on the stock market, and I wanted to give a certain amount to charity when I was a publicly listed company. And my other directors said, you can't. You can't go.
So
when you've got investors giving money to charity, your only job is to return, maximum. Now, if you know you're doing harm, you would hope there was some safety net for that, but it doesn't really appear yet, certainly for any type of food,
No.
until we get it recognised that there is any. So I say it's all about wealth and not health. And what I'm trying to get the public to understand, so I'm trying to do a real food rebellion, or fake food rebellion, is that there's only 10 or 15 companies that control everything. I think you mentioned something similar in your book. 10 big food companies own 80% of the products in the supermarket.
I mean, it's about 6 companies basically trade the commodities that make most of our calories. So
Yes.
kind of, we get most of our calories from between 4 and 6 crops.
Yeah.
And those crops are traded by 4 to 6 companies.
Yeah.
And then those companies send the raw materials up to the sort of processors and then to the retailers. But it's, it's an oligopoly. It's not huge. It's very, very condensed.
So you're saying at the component, the ingredient level, it's a small amount of companies. Then even at the brands, they're all conglomerates now that have merged together. And what I'm trying to say to people, there's probably let's say there's 50 companies across the components, the ingredients, the food manufacturers that are controlling everything we eat. There's probably 10 guys that are making billions out of each one. So there's just a few people getting super, super rich out of feeding people crap. And I think we've got to almost, I think part of the reason and part of the way we fixed the smoking problem wasn't just banning it in restaurants and all that. It was people were starting to realise that a few people were making lots of people sick, and they started to give the two fingers to the cigarette companies.
I mean, there are 2 parts, aren't there? So I am not an anti-capitalist. I think it's very possible to have, I think almost really, I have the sort of Milton Friedman doctrine, it's quite a right-wing doctrine of going, or economically right, of going, the business of business is business. Like, you
Agreed.
can't have companies faffing around with like, are we trying to make money? What are we trying to do here? It doesn't really work. It's confusing. So have businesses, make them make money. That's fine. That's their job. Let's be open about it. And then regulate the hell out of them. And it's worked well with aviation, with automotive.
Yeah.
We're going to do it with oil. It's worked really well with pharmaceuticals. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry was the Wild West 20 years ago, and now it's regulated. They make more money than ever. The banks in 2008, we had banks collapse because of poor regulation, and the banks, as I understand it from my banking colleagues, they're delighted with bank regulation. It makes it easier for them. So I think we can have regulation without destroying the economy, and we can be straightforward about what business does. But it is important to call the food companies out as evil and that they do disgusting things, because that helps create a market away from their products. And so I do that quite deliberately, although I know it won't change the food companies. What it will do is change consumer preferences. Will it? I mean, people are trapped. That's a whole separate discussion. But if we can shift purchasing to real food, I think what you're saying is exactly right. That will help.
So a couple of things you're saying then. Regulation, let's get stricter on them. Let's educate the consumer so they understand what's driving all these illnesses. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen my tree of insulin resistance that Swiss Re now copy. So I've always said that, only listen to research from your life insurance company, because everybody else has got a vested interest. Their job is to keep you alive for longer. Yeah. And I produced this tree that had got 4 or 5 things in the roots, which was the obvious ones: too much sugar, fake food, USP, but also lack of sleep, sedentary lifestyles, into the root being insulin resistance, and then the constellation of diseases at the top, which are, rather than see them in silos, all caused by the same one root thing. So everything from PCOS, erectile dysfunction, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, strokes, certain cancers, and in fact tomorrow's conference with the PHC, it's our big topic. But once consumers start to understand that some of these foods could be causing all the things they worry about, and then with your regulation, maybe the two things have got to come together to drive awareness.
I mean, the politicians need a mandate for regulation. They need people saying, okay, look, we all acknowledge this is harmful, it's addictive, it's everywhere, my kids can't stop eating it. We've got to regulate this. And then we borrow from the tobacco control playbook. And Erica Lafata today has been saying this very clearly. And I think it's actually a fairly, you can't just do one thing, you do a whole suite of things. So you label the food, you move it up on the shelf, you get rid of the cartoon characters, you stop selling it aggressively to kids, you stop the health claims on the packet. Almost all ultra-processed food has health claims. So you do this whole suite of things together, but you need to persuade everyone what you have to do first. And getting rid of the conflicts is kind of step one. I mean, business people from other sectors really get this stuff profoundly. that the purpose of the food industry isn't food, it's to generate shareholder value. And I think exposing that to the public is important, because once people get that, then we can say, well, we can't have our biggest charity, the British Nutrition Foundation, funded by McDonald's, Coca-Cola, all the supermarkets, all the big food companies. That becomes obvious. We can't have our scientific advisory committee on nutrition with half its members having declared conflict.
Diabetes UK conference sponsored by Schweppes. I mean,
That's
come on.
not true.
It was true.
That can't
Not
be true.
diabetes.co.uk, but Diabetes UK conference Schweppes, which is obviously part of Cadbury's now. And just quickly, because I know you're in a rush, tell everybody about when they took, because I'm trying to get people to rebel against some of the big companies. Tell them what Nestle did in Brazil with the boat.
So Nestle had, I mean, there are some companies who position themselves as being kind of good, and Nestle, I think, adopted a very, very aggressive marketing strategy to break into, middle-income countries. And so they employed an army of door-to-door salespeople, which allowed them to kind of build these community bridges and really get into low-income favelas with real junk. But they floated a floating supermarket. It was called Nestle a Bordo, Nestle on Board, and it went hundreds of kilometers up the Amazon, bringing harmful food, ultra-processed food, junk food to very remote communities in the Amazon. No public health infrastructure. So if all that food did was to rot your teeth, it would cause untold suffering. Imagine having toothache in a village, hundreds of miles up into the Amazon in the rainforest. I mean,
where you're literally only taking the tough out of the brick. You know what I mean?
Right. You're going to, So, but of course, the food has much more harmful food effects than that. And we know Nestle have done harmful things for a long time, but they are trapped. Their purpose
is to grow.
If there's a market there, they kind of have to go and explore it. Once they've thought of it, they've got to do it. Because if they don't, then one of the other companies will. And let's be honest, it's not just Nestle now that is in the Amazon.
True, and I think the fact that it happened so quickly overnight to South America, from very little fake food to lots of fake food. You see movements in Chile, like with all the warnings on the cans of Coke and the cereal boxes, which is fantastic in many, many ways. Do you think we'll ever get there in Europe?
I have two asks that I am trying to gather various institutions around, including some of the charities I work with, big charities like UNICEF, little charities, First Steps Nutrition, organisations like the Royal College of Physicians. There are two asks. One is that our Scientific Advisory Committee on Nutrition, the government committee, should be free of conflicts. Now, when you speak to members of the committee, they say, oh, well, that's ridiculous. The conflicts don't affect us. Or there are no unconflicted, talented people. Now, these are the arguments that we used to exclude women, people of colour, minority groups of all kinds from positions of power. They have no validity. You could definitely have an unconflicted second. That would set a cultural tone for redesigning guidelines like the Eat Well so that they are much clearer about harmful food. The second ask is octagon warning labels like they have in Chile. Now, that sounds like quite a niche thing because we know that warning labels on food don't work brilliantly well. The reason you do warning labels and the way you apply them is with using saturated fat, salt, and sugar. The reason you use them is because they're unarguable, and we know we can label 95% of ultra-processed food just using fat, salt, and sugar. It's almost all high in fat, salt, and sugar. Yep. If we added colouring, cosmetic additives, caffeine, we could do 100% of it. So the reason you start with octagons is because once a food has an octagon on it, Cocoa Pops would get 2 octagons. A Hovis wholemeal loaf would get 2 octagons. Fish fingers would get 2 octagons. Most ready-meal lasagnas would get 4 octagons. Once you've got octagons on food, well, you can't then have health claims on it. You can't say it's high in fibre. You can't say, as it currently says on a box of Cocoa Pops, that it supports the health of your entire family, that it supports your bones and brains.
Drives me mad.
You can't have Cocoa Monkey on there. You can't have the cartoon character on the Froobs. All of the cartoons come off. The health claims come off. And you then should not be able to market any food with an octagon to a child on any platform. So they're off the bus tickets. And you don't just say it's not about the products, it's about the companies that make it. So you then can't have a McDonald's or a Coca-Cola or a Nestle sponsoring sporting events for kids. You can't have them, putting out little ads on social media. Even without the food, just kids dancing, having a good time. That all gets banned too. That's what we did with cigarettes. It wasn't just you couldn't show the cigarettes. You could not have the logo of any company that made cigarettes on a car or an athlete's vest or anything. So octagons are your kind of starting keystone policy, and everything else flows from there. So that's what I want. That's my net zero, is those two things. I think they are achievable. My life's ambition would be to see them happen. I think we are a minimum of 5 years away. I would love to see it in 10 years. I'd be pretty happy. Cigarettes took 60 years.
Yeah, and they battled against 6,000 plus pieces of research and were still able to sell them for quite a long time, which worries me. We're doing all this good work, but is it going to take 6,000 pieces of research showing that?
No, I think the public have seen the effects of smoking, and we're now used to. Remember, when cigarettes were the first thing that we figured out how to regulate, really, the first thing that there was a warning label on and that we banned the marketing of. We do have some restrictions on alcohol and gambling. I mean, not nearly enough, and it's all done in partnership with industry. But I think there is a popular understanding now. People know the food was made by cigarette companies.
Yeah.
People feel addicted to the food, and everyone is living. I mean, you've been through this. I have been through this. We are all, even if you live with privilege, you live with excess weight and diet-related disease, and it is a constant battle. So I think people feel gaslit by their food, by the food companies that make it. And I think there is real public appetite for this. And I think, the success of the book is not because it's the best book ever written. It's because I've written it at a moment where there is maximal fury about what our children are forced to eat and how we are forced to eat, and particularly people who live in poverty. So I think maybe the success of the book leads me to think we might see some movement. But I am one person with a zero budget. And the operating budget of any one of these companies runs into billions, their marketing budget. So it is. I mean, I'm not the only David, but there's a little group of Davids and a number of very big Goliaths.
Well, thank you for spearheading the little group of Davids.
Well, no, I'm a little piece, and people have done this work for a lot longer than me.
That is true. That is absolutely true. But what I think you have done magnificently, and I said it from the bottom of my heart earlier today, is that you have got the ear of the papers, the BBC, the media, and that in itself, don't underestimate the importance of. There are people that getting the message out there, of course, but certainly in the UK, you've really driven that message into the media. So well done indeed for all of that.
I really appreciate it. It's lovely to do this, and it's great to have you. It's great to be on the same team with you. It's really
lovely. You're a star. Thank you very much.
Lovely to see you, Steve.
Chris.
Well, I hope you found that absolutely fascinating. Remember, throughout this entire podcast series, I'm going to travel around the world. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to fly around. I'm going to meet all the professors, the investigative journalists, the scientists that together we're trying to understand how to live healthier, better, for longer. Join me on this journey, and I hope to inspire you to better health.